Good evening. I'm New York State Assemblyman Keith Wright, and thank you for joining Assemblyman Michael Blake and Assemblyman Victor Pichardo as chair of the Housing Committee and the elected representative of the 70th Assembly District, which is in God's green country, that being Harlem, USA. I'm joined here by two of my colleagues from the Housing Committee. Today's public hearing will examine the state of Mitchell-Lama housing developments, their sustainability, and how the legislature can promote their longevity. The expansion, preservation, and improvement of affordable housing in New York is of great importance not only to me and the Mitchell-Lama developments in this community and across the state are an integral part of our affordable housing stock. The Assembly recognizes that the voluntary dissolution of Mitchell-Lamas and the subsequent loss of affordable housing is exacerbating the housing crisis, which is why we in the Assembly have been and continue to be supportive of legislation intending to support the preservation and development of affordable housing. For example, I'm the prime sponsor of the bill 3682, which would enact a 4-year moratorium on voluntary dissolution of Mitchell-Lama rental companies, and I know my colleagues here sponsors a few bills relating to Mitchell-Lamas, certainly. We also show our support for Mitchell-Lamas and other affordable housing in our budget priorities. The insight and community perspective that you all have here today is essential to the process, and I look forward to hearing from all of you and your testimony and moving forward together. If you wish to testify and your name is not on the witness list, please let one of the staff, folks in the back, or this gentleman right here in particular, let them know, and we'll try to make arrangements. Should you not have time to testify, or if you wish to submit written testimony, please send written testimony in within 1 week from today. Again, thank you all for coming here this evening. I do apologize for being late. Traffic was a little bit overbearing, but with that, I want to give it over to my colleague, the chair of the subcommittee on Mitchell-Lamas, Assemblyman Michael Blake.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are grateful that you all are here tonight. First, let us put a point of reference that we are in Assemblymember Rivera's district, and we're grateful for him hosting, and we are joined to my right by Assemblyman Victor Pichardo, and to our left, joined by Assemblyman Louis Sepulveda, who's also on our Housing Committee. Allow me first to thank you all for being here, and to thank the chair of our Housing Committee, Assemblymember Keith Wright, for his leadership and for making the decision for us to come together for this important public hearing on today. My name is Michael Blake. I'm the chair of the Mitchell-Lama Subcommittee. Grateful to be here as a Bronx native. Even though Chairman Wright speaks of God's country, he is disillusioned because we do know that God's country is here in the boogie down Bronx right now.
Let's not fight in public.
In 1955, when this country was addressing the critical opportunity to create fairness for our children through the establishment of Brown versus Board of Education decision, we were addressing equally another critical need. Because it was in 1955, through the visionaries of Mitchell-Lama, that the Mitchell-Lama program was signed into law. In 2016, more than 45,000 New York families live in the 97 Mitchell-Lama facilities that are overseen by HPD, and as we know, HPD and HCR have incredible leadership respectively. The program was created to make sure that middle-income housing opportunities for all was provided. It was a responsibility so elected officials can preserve and expand affordable housing for our residents. But we will not succeed unless we form a partnership with those that live in those buildings. So tonight we want to hear from the people of Concourse Village, where our district office is located. We want to hear from Co-op City, Jamie Towers, Crown Gardens, Stuytown, and all the residents that are a part of Mitchell-Lama all across our great city. These are your buildings, your homes, your communities, and no one knows better than you what needs to happen to make them better, and finding ways that we can address these issues together through this partnership. Building this partnership will take time and lots of conversations, which have continued. Many of us were a part of the Mitchell-Lama Resident Coalition meeting that happened last month to hear some of your concerns. We've been a part of individual conversations as well, and the purpose of today is to hear from you so that we can address as we move forward, as we have now 9 legislative days left in our session on this year. Affordable housing is necessary for our communities to thrive. Affordable housing is the way many dreams are realized. When we think about how we approach these issues in this vision, that's why we have the vision of the 3 E's of economic development, education, and equality for all. But we know many people that are living in Mitchell-Lama right now are wondering, will they have that equality for them? As the chair of the subcommittee on Mitchell-Lama, I've had the added responsibility of ensuring Mitchell-Lama housing is constantly improving to serve you. That's why when we were handed the report that came in July of 2015, I was shocked, just like you, of the pervasive problems that we've seen through Mitchell-Lama opportunities and complexes. But fortunately, we've seen some progress, and we will hear of some of that today. The report indicated how individuals were in line on waiting lists and were skipped without any justification. It was conveyed about many different instances of inconsistencies that fortunately we've seen some progress, but we know more is needed. Failures that were occurring on before, but we understand that we're here tonight to make progress from those failures that have happened. It was unacceptable, and in an effort to fix the situation, I've introduced legislation that will make the application process more accountable and more transparent. 9769 being one of those bills, a bill that would ensure that any applicant is aware of their status on the waiting list and set a standard for more fairness for those that are moving forward accordingly. This was not the only piece of legislation. You should know that there are now close to 25 bills specifically addressing Mitchell-Lama legislation in the Housing and in Assembly. And as we all know, we have a $2 billion memorandum of understanding, which hopefully a portion of that will come to our issues as well. Lastly, our office is hosting every Tuesday tenant support specialists for Tenant Tuesdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We would encourage you to come by our office at 780 Concourse Village West for that support to make it easier for tenants of Mitchell-Lama complexes all across our city to get the help that you need. Working towards fixing these issues has been a team effort, which is a personal one for me. Our family motto is to go from no house in Jamaica to the Black House in Northwestern to the White House in D.C. to the State House in Albany. But as we understand, many people are wondering if they can keep their house and keep their dreams, and that's the reason why we're here tonight. So with that, we thank you for being here. We look forward to hearing your testimonies, and we look forward to having a stronger Mitchell-Lama program because of tonight and thereafter.
Mr. Pichardo.
Thank you, Chairman Wright, Chairman Blake, Assemblymember Sepulveda. Simply put, for those who don't know me, I'm State Assembly Member Victor Pichardo. I have the honor of representing my neighbors in the West Bronx. Very quickly, affordable housing comes in many shapes and sizes, and we need to make sure that we protect all aspects of affordable housing. Mitchell-Lama was created for that specific fact, and we need to make sure not only is that it's protected, but it continues to grow and strive in this city. And I look forward, as along with my colleagues, to hear the struggles that are happening within Mitchell-Lama housing, as well as solutions so that we can move forward and protect this very, very important entity within the city of New York. And again, I want to emphasize and thank both Chairman Wright and Chairman Blake on putting and convening this hearing together to make sure that we know of all aspects of Mitchell-Lama housing to make sure that we protect this precious resource that is affordable housing. Thank you.
Assemblyman Sepulveda.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Buenas noches. And I'll try to translate what Assemblyman Blake and Assemblyman Wright said in Spanish. Essentially, I'm fortunate to have a Mitchell-Lama complex in my assembly district, which is the 87th Assembly District in the Bronx. And I have Jamie Towers, and I see some of our residents over there. You know, we get constant complaints about the development. It's improving, but we still have issues we have to deal with. And as a member of the Housing Committee, I am keenly aware of many of the issues that Mitchell-Lama are facing, not only in my district, not only in the Bronx, but throughout the city of New York. And I'm fortunate to have Keith Wright as the chair of Housing and Assemblyman Blake, who is constantly gathering information, sharing information with us, giving us all the information that we need so that we can work together to improve Mitchell-Lama housing. And so I've pledged to work with these two gentlemen and the rest of the Housing Committee. We have revised, as you said, 25 bills that are dealing with Mitchell-Lama. And we review all of them, and we're looking for those bills that are going to improve the lives of the residents of Mitchell-Lama. And so I want to thank all of you for coming here today. I'm looking forward to hearing your comments. And who knows, maybe based on some of your comments, we'll provide more legislation for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. First up to testify this evening, we have the Commissioner of New York State Homes and Community Renewal, Mr. Jamie Rubin. Commissioner, come on up.
Thank you, sir.
Well, that's not necessary.
Testimony. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with your gracious goodwill, ask my colleague Mark Colon to join me at the table. Mark is, well, I forget what your title is actually. What is your title?
Deputy Commissioner for Housing, Office of Housing Preservation.
There we go. And he oversees the state's Mitchell-Lama activities, so he is here to help answer any questions that you have after I'm done with my testimony. I thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. Mr. Chairman, Chairman Wright, Assemblymember Blake, Assemblymember Pichardo, Assemblymember Sepulveda. I am Jamie Rubin, Commissioner and CEO of the New York State Homes and Community Renewal. I'm pleased to join you here in the Bronx to talk about the Mitchell-Lama program and how the state is working with your help to preserve it as affordable while adding years to the useful life of these developments. New York's Mitchell-Lama program is one of the most successful affordable housing programs in the nation's history. The developments are located both upstate and downstate, as you know, in suburbs and cities, multi-story, two-story, housing hundreds, thousands, or in some cases tens of thousands of residents. No two developments are the same, but they are all precious resources. Over time, many have become the anchor of their community with a diverse mix of low and moderate income, largely working class tenants. This remains true despite the fact that the last Mitchell-Lama project was completed in 1980, 35 years ago. Today, hundreds of thousands of low and moderate income New Yorkers call these complexes home, and as a result of our joint efforts, we've refinanced and preserved many of these developments to keep them affordable, safe, and stable for decades to come. I should mention that, as an aside, it is important to understand that when it started, thanks to forward-thinking legislators like yourselves, the Mitchell-Lama program was a bipartisan effort. I think about that often when I look to Washington and consider the current state of congressional dysfunction. And I despair that the Congress would ever be able to create a similar program today. Here in New York, we have historically taken a different tack in addressing the needs of our citizens. We work together. And thanks to you, your foresight, and your concern about your communities, we have an historic executive budget that will preserve and protect the well-being of our citizens and our communities. As you know, and the chairman mentioned this, alluded to this in his opening remarks, this year's state budget includes almost $2 billion in additional funding for new investments in affordable housing across the state. This is an unprecedented commitment on the part of the governor and the legislature, and for that, I thank you. It boosts state spending on housing programs by nearly $5 billion over the next 5 years when you take into account all sources of funding, and is part of the governor's larger plan to invest over $10 billion over the next 5 years to create and to preserve 100,000 affordable housing units across New York State. In addition, the budget contains an additional $10 billion to address the scourge of homelessness, which will support the creation of 6,000 new supportive housing units across the state, up to 1,000 emergency beds, and a variety of expanded services over the next 5 years. When all of this, we are working with you now and with your colleagues in the Senate to finalize the details of our plans for this investment in housing for New Yorkers, and I'm grateful for all of your help, your assistance, and your urgency in getting this done before, as you say, the legislative session ends in 9 short legislative days. Once that's done, it will be our job to make sure our programs and spending plans are tailored to meet a variety of regional priorities. We will strive to make communities large and small, urban and rural, upstate and downstate more vibrant, successful, and affordable. This is the core of HCR's mission, and it is what has allowed us to finance the creation or preservation of more than 42,000 affordable housing units across the state over the last 5 years. It's what allowed us to set records in the last 2 years for the production of affordable multifamily housing, with more than 8,000 affordable units built or preserved in each of the last 2 years, including 86 developments alone financed in 2015, an increase of about 20% from the year before. Over that period, we refinanced more than 10,000 Mitchell-Lama units spread across 37 developments upstate and downstate. We intend to continue to meet the affordable housing needs of New Yorkers in years to come. So let me speak more specifically about our work with Mitchell-Lama housing. Broadly, HCR works with a portfolio on 2 fronts. First, we serve as the supervising agency of 132 state-financed Mitchell-Lama projects, covering more than 75,000 apartments through our Office of Housing Preservation, which my colleague Mark Colon runs, which works to ensure that the state's investment is properly and well managed and to verify compliance with Mitchell-Lama laws and regulations. Recently, our president, Mark Colon, presented an overview of HCR's important work in this area to the Manhattan and Brooklyn Borough President's Mitchell-Lama task forces. At each of these events, local elected officials, Mitchell-Lama residents, and any other interested parties were able to ask questions and express their concerns regarding admissions, maintenance, and other key aspects of life in this indispensable category of affordable housing. That type of community engagement is critically important to me and to Mark and to the entire OHP team, and we are always willing to make ourselves available as we are here this evening. OHP is also engaged in a number of efforts to streamline its administrative oversight of the state's Mitchell-Lama portfolio, and I'm proud to say that we recently received the state's Silo Buster Award from the Governor's Lean program for its joint effort with New York State's Office of Taxation and Finance for improving the income verification process for our Mitchell-Lama residents. I bet, Mr. Chairman, that you didn't know we got the Silo Buster Award.
The Silo Buster Award. Could you talk a little bit about that?
No, I'll tell you.
Go off testimony for a moment.
Mark, would you like to speak about what kind of...
I'm sure the crowd would love to know that when a government agency receives an award, and an award as prestigious as the Silo, S-I-L-O, Buster Award. I mean, we are on the edges of our seats, and we want to know what that is.
You only get this kind of interaction at these hearings. This is why I come to these.
We were very proud.
Very proud to get that award.
Maybe you can talk in all seriousness about what the process that we did when we went through.
We were, yeah. We went through in a number of different areas in the Office of Housing Preservation. The governor has established a Lean program that is an efficiency program, and we examined from start to finish a lot of our compliance procedures. In this particular income verification, tenants' annual incomes forms are sent to us, and we do a process where the Taxation and Finance has to verify some information that there had been some bottlenecks in that process, and so by examining the whole process from start to finish, we were able to find some of those bottlenecks, to work together to modify some of our regulations and to get Taxation and Finance to agree to some processes that sped up the process and will allow people not to not get hit with surcharges unfairly.
Well-deserved award.
Thank you. Well, I should say, we completed this. When did we complete this work?
In the fall.
In the fall, okay. So we're just rolling this out now. So to the extent that folks have not seen the benefits of that yet, it's obviously just rolling out through our processes. Additionally, as a provider of low-cost financing, our Office of Finance and Development crafts financial solutions to ensure that Mitchell-Lama developments are kept affordable, that tenants can remain in their homes, and that those homes are renovated with building-wide systems from cellars to roofs that are resilient, energy efficient, and fully up to date. As you know, under New York's private housing finance law, Mitchell-Lama co-op developments may pay off their original state financing and elect to leave the program once they've passed the statute's initial 20-year threshold. Up to now, very few of our co-ops have chosen this option, and HCR is working hard to ensure that tools exist to refinance and rehabilitate these co-ops and to preserve them as the largest portfolio of owner-occupied affordable housing in the country. As part of these efforts, last month, HCR issued an open window RFP that makes available capital resources specifically designated for the purpose of preserving Mitchell-Lama projects, about $25 million in funding that was appropriated last year. I encourage you to review the RFP and work with your communities to identify good candidates for this program within the portfolio of projects that the state oversees. Of course, we know that the need is greater than we can accomplish with this round of funding, and I want you to stress that at HCR, we believe that funding for this program should be continued under the Memorandum of Understanding that is being discussed right now, and we'll fight to ensure that it is. And I can assure you, members of the Assembly, that among the state's priorities for that $2 billion over the next 5 years is a substantial amount of funding for 5 more years of preservation of Mitchell-Lama co-op buildings. HCR's preservation work continues what we started under Governor Cuomo's original 2012 signature affordable housing program, the $1 billion House New York initiative, which financed the creation or preservation of 14,000 affordable units over 5 years, beginning in, again, 2012. Central to this effort was the promise to preserve affordability in roughly 8,600 units of 35 developments in the former UDC ESD Mitchell-Lama portfolio for an additional 40 years. We are, at the governor's urging, making good on that promise. I want to give a well-deserved acknowledgement to our staff, led by Marion Zucker, for completing the refinancing of 24 Mitchell-Lama developments with over 5,750 apartments to date. 2 more developments have been approved for refinancing now and are expected to close in June and July of this year, next month. So 3 years into a 5-year program, we are, I'm pleased to say, ahead of schedule in achieving our goal. That is not the sum total, I should say, of what we've achieved since 2011 when the governor set this goal. Between 11 and 15, HCR refinanced 13 other non-UDC Mitchell-Lama developments with over 4,000 units. We've closed on a 14th Clinton Plaza in downtown Syracuse earlier this year, which has 305 units. All of these homes are going to stay affordable through the Mitchell-Lama program or as Article 11 companies for at least another 30 years, and many of them, such as Marienheim Apartments in Brooklyn and Brighton Towers, welcome, sir, Brighton Towers in Syracuse, house seniors on fixed incomes or families on finite budgets with limited means. It's important to note that when we finance transactions like these, we are providing the owners with the capital to fully renovate those parts of the building that need upgrading, running the gamut of health and safety improvements like abatement of hazardous materials and security upgrades, to new kitchens and baths, flooring, common areas, and intercoms, things that tenants can see and appreciate. These buildings, many of them built in the 60s and 70s, are brought up to code, made energy efficient and resilient. In short, we recognize that going beyond the cosmetic is as critical to neighborhood cohesiveness as are the well-being and affordability of the development itself. The opportunity to rehabilitate these homes while preserving affordability for these residents is truly one of the most rewarding aspects of my job. As I said at the beginning of my testimony, since Governor Cuomo took office, HCR has refinanced more than 10,000 Mitchell-Lama units in 37 developments. That is 10,000 units that will remain affordable for decades to come. It is an important achievement, one we should all be proud of, and so I'm happy to repeat it again. Let me end with a couple of thoughts on this question, can we do more? The immediate answer, of course, is yes. We plan on doing whatever we are capable of in order to preserve these irreplaceable resources. We have a robust pipeline of projects that we are working on bringing to our board for approval in the coming months and years. As to the question of how we can do more than we're already doing to preserve and protect, we can work together. New Yorkers succeed and do their best work by thinking together, by working together, and planning together. We do that in a bipartisan way by accepting that the enduring lack of affordable housing is a problem that we share. It affects all of us and all of our communities statewide. When we take a huge, it is up to us together. Preservation of what we have is one way forward. Keeping people in their homes is the result. I look forward to working with you to cement the budget in the days and weeks ahead and to allocating funds to address the needs of New York's Mitchell-Lama developments. Thank you, and I'm happy to hear any questions that you have.
Thank you, Commissioner. We've also been joined by the assembly person from the 72nd Assembly District in Manhattan, and that being Guillermo Linares, who's just joined us here today. Thank you for coming, Mr. Linares. I just have a couple of questions, and I just want to say, in terms of process, that we should probably start wrapping up around 8:30 because no matter what, this library closes at 9. I'm just in terms of process, just in terms of process. So, with that, Mr. Commissioner, I just want to ask you if you, and I know you talked a little bit about it, but if you can give us a sneak peek, because as we all know, the memorandum of understanding that the state, that the governor's office and the state legislature have to enter into, in terms of finalizing the budget of the state of New York. There's some $1.9 billion outstanding. Can you give us maybe a sneak peek on what the governor's priorities are, your priorities are, in terms of saving? I know you've gone through a list that you've saved, gone through 37 developments, I think it was, and some 7,500 units of housing. Going forward in this state process, could you give us a sneak peek on where the priorities go in terms of Mitchell-Lama? I know you talked a little bit about it. If you can
Sure, I'd be delighted. I mean, more broadly, that it's $2 billion, as you say, $1.9 billion over 5 years.
Yeah.
In addition to funding we have from earlier years of about $700 million, and then an additional $500 million that is in for out years, in years 3, 4, and 5. That's not appropriated, but it's sort of accounted for in the capital budget. That's a total of about $3.5 billion of capital subsidy, bonded state capital, that the governor and with this budget, the legislature has made available for the development and preservation of new affordable housing throughout the state. That funding, as you well know, unlocks other leverage sources of funding in the volume cap, the tax-exempt bonds, taxable bonds, state low-income housing credits, federal low-income housing credits, and other sources of subsidy, as well as New York City capital that often comes into our deals in New York City. And in total, it's about $12.5 billion that the governor and the legislature has committed, subject to this MOU, to spend in the next 5 years. So it's a tremendous commitment. It represents, we think, about 106,000 units of affordable housing built or preserved across the state, and we expect that fully half of those will be here in the 5 boroughs of New York City based on need and our commitment to do that. The governor's priorities, as we've been talking about with the Assembly Central staff and will do in the weeks ahead, in order to finalize this memorandum of understanding, our priorities include supportive housing, obviously, for special needs populations, preservation of the Mitchell-Lama portfolio, on which we expect to spend, I think, at least $200 million more.
Yeah.
Okay, $200 million, which should get us through the entirety. Our goal is to get ourselves through the entirety of the state's Mitchell-Lama portfolio, assuming that we keep it all within the Mitchell-Lama portfolio, which is our intent. So we think that's probably $200 million of capital subsidy and then additional funding on top of that. And then after that, it's new construction and so on and so forth. But I think that probably gets to where you were trying to get to.
One more quick question. Since we're here in the Bronx, and I see various Mitchell-Lama constituencies that are here, and you say that you've been able to refinance some 10,000 units. Any prime developments up here in the Bronx you want to brag about?
Any particular?
Sure.
Because if you don't have good news, it's in the Bronx. That's fine.
Sure,
I got it.
We in Co-op City, for instance, back in 2011,
Co-op City.
Yep.
we worked with both the city and the federal government, and were able to secure a federally insured mortgage at a very low interest rate because of that federal insurance for Co-op City over about 30 years of $650 million, which is going to save them about close to $100 million in debt service over the life of the loan. The state, the city, and the federal government each took a piece of the guarantee of that mortgage, so it was a collaborative effort, it points out that they're not the point that the commissioner made about leveraging other funds. These were private funds, private loan that was guaranteed by the government, and it got a very low rate for the development.
Mr. Blake?
First, for the record, for everyone here, there are women and plenty of and remarkable women that are on the housing committee. Don't let this presence think otherwise in that manner. We want to set the record straight on that itself. I see some of my Concourse Village crew giving me that look. I just want y'all to know that right now, just so we have that out the gate. I have a few questions based upon the testimony, Commissioner, and then dive a little bit deeper. So on page 7, there's a few points where it says, for example, the number of very few of our co-ops have chosen the option of leaving the program after the 20-year statute threshold. Do we have what is the actual number that actually left the program and the impact on the residents?
Statewide, there have been 3 Mitchell-Lama mutual housing companies, which is what we call co-ops under the statute. There have been 3. One before, I've been with the agency about 9 years now. One was before I got there, was Trump Village, 3 and 4. There was last year a very long process at Southbridge Towers, and the third one is River Cross on Roosevelt Island. And those are all subject to our dissolution procedures and 3 separate shareholder votes by a supermajority. So it's a very high threshold. There's a lot of disclosure that goes on, and it's sort of illustrates the sort of the delicate balance that we walk as the regulating agency for these cooperatives between needing to support them, but also not wanting to micromanage them and be paternalistically.
And what was the impact on the residents after the dissolution? I think sometimes, well, not all the time I would say, there's probably the concern that when someone leaves the program, the impact that will happen on the residents.
Yeah, in the cooperative, when you have a Mitchell-Lama cooperative that's converting to a market rate cooperative, this is not the entire deal, but the people turn in their Mitchell-Lama shares and they get back market rate shares. So in a co-op. So immediately the equity, the selling point of it is that the restrictions on sale that come under the Mitchell-Lama program to keep it affordable are then lifted, and they could sell for up to a market rate. They at the same time they lose their tax exemption, the property tax exemption they get through the Mitchell-Lama program, so oftentimes there's a lot of concern about maintenance rates going up. We try our best to offer to provide as much subsidy financing or other sources of financing to make sure it doesn't get to that level, but when it is that at that level, we work with the board to make sure that they institute some measures like flip taxes that can subsidize for the people that then sell them at a market rate, sell their unit at a market rate. They owe on the flip tax, they owe money back that goes back to the cooperative that helps to keep those maintenance rates low.
So I guess just breaking this down for the resident itself, what has been the impact, positive, negative, indifferent, when that change happens? Because I think that the everyday person is hearing and processing going from Mitchell-Lama to market rate, and understandably they'll be concerned when they hear that.
Yeah, it's a very there's a whole lot of different factors that go into it, both positive and negative. I mean, I can't speak to why people, shareholders, specific shareholders, make the decision to vote for or to vote against. I know that the ones that I've been involved with, we very closely make sure that our main interest is in those long-term tenants who may be on fixed incomes, who maybe if they vote against, but they get outvoted, we make sure that they have access to scree and dree. We make sure that we work with the board, and we encourage the board to make sure that there's enough supplement for the low income tenants to make sure that they can maintain their house.
So I guess final question on this specific point. Since scree is specific to those that are at the $50,000 threshold, are there any provisions of protection for the resident that's above $50,000 when it goes from Mitchell-Lama shares to market rate?